Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen Byram, and I'm the author of Conversations with Dawnkey, A Bipolar Journey. What I'd like to do this morning is read to you from my second book, Kaffy the Love Dawnkey. This has not been published yet, but I want to read this chapter to you called Dawnkey Majick. Dawnkey Majick. I'm going to share a bit with you. Creative visualization. All I ever wanted was to be loved. Unfortunately, I want to be loved by everybody. Lol. My grandmother was awful, and she made me feel like a piece of crap. Not so many words. All she had to do was look at you. I never felt like she was my grandma. One time she asked me why I didn't have any friends. I sat at the table staring at her, tears which she probably never saw running down my face. I knew this, yet stared, wondering how she would react when she saw them. In my fantasy, I imagined myself dying. How I die isn't important. But I'm in a tunnel, and I can stop and imagine the beauty of it as much as I like. And I come to the end, and I see people, and it's lots of people. And my excitement ramps up as I get closer, and they begin to cheer. Now, while writing this, I still tear up, even without the booze. It's that important to me. And as I get closer and closer, it's more and more people. And I know them. And they're all beautiful and young, and their faces are all lit up with love and smiles. I begin to run toward them, and I see people I know, people who have wronged me and want to tell me they love me, and people who I have wronged, and they have forgiven me, and family and friends and people I don't recognize. I can go into long, fantastical detail, thinking about people in my life I want to talk to and the things I will say or that I need to hear them say to me. And my grandmother's face shows up in the crowd, and she looks at me with adoration. Hey, it's my fantasy, lol. And cries out in her soft, gentle southern voice, Kathleen, I am so proud of you. And she embraces me, and people are coming up and telling me things I've forgotten, like the boy at the psych hospital I stood up for, like the people I gave money to and how it helped them, like the people who I have loved and been kind to and cherished. And my grandmother tells me I am famous and that all these people love me, and I just go from there thinking about all the interactions. Because it is me, I can think anything I want. I make it very intimate, non-sexually intimate. This is how I emote in private for my own emotional benefit and gain. For me, it works to write it down. Then I can slowly read it over and over, burning it into myself. Another fantasy. I save someone who has wronged me. This involves me being a superhero and something really heinous is happening to someone who has been mean to me, and I rush in and save them and then love bomb them because they were traumatized. This is extremely satisfying to think about. My imagination is really, really strong, and these things seem almost real to me. You've probably detected that I have a need to be loved tremendously, not just a little, and 2, famous. I really want to be famous for being the most loved donkey in the world, Kaffy the Love Dawnkey. I feel the need to remind you that I can't help it. I'm a little nuts. I don't think I've told you, but the doctor around 2 years ago maybe noted the bipolar was resolved and that I had schizoaffective disorder. So yeah, that's a little serious. Now I'd like to digress for a moment. I didn't suddenly become another person when you read that I have schizoaffective disorder. I'm still the same lovey donkey who loves you, and I'm still a good person. Even when I was at the height of my insanity in December of 2012, I was still trying so hard to do good. I was profoundly psychotic from going off my medication. I wanted to feel good again and thought that would do it. Instead of a manic high, I became profoundly psychotic. I believed Dad was God and Mom was Mrs. God, and the world was going to end, and all manner of craziness was occurring. I thought I had to save the world. It was terrifying. I did what I had to do. I never hurt a soul, nor did I intend to. Now, most of you didn't need to hear that, but some of you might, the ones who don't know me like my internet friends. But yeah, schizoaffective disorder and the bipolar lend themselves to me being a little excited about my future. So back to Dawnkey Majick. There are more examples. The aura. On at least 2 separate occasions, I awoke in the morning, got up, and stood at the end of my bed in the partial dark and looked down at my left hand and saw an aura. This was no wimpy aura. This was magnificent. It was blue but smoky and whitish too, if I recall correctly. When I moved my hand, it swirled around it. I couldn't see my aura anywhere else around me. I couldn't see it on others either, just my left hand. You can imagine this was quite thrilling. I was so impressed that I still move my hand around sometimes, thinking I might get lucky and see it again. I yearn for it. I think I spend too much time thinking about things like this and neglecting more important ones. Did I tell you about my messages I got about my purse? Once in a while, but more frequently lately, I get messages. My spiritual advisor told me I was going from empath to psychic. I think psychic just describes the process of picking up on a mental frequency. So I was sitting in my computer chair, staring into space, thinking of nothing. This is common for me. I can shut my brain right down. A message popped in my head to go check my purse. It occurred to me it was sitting out, and I felt a little nervous yet silly, and said something like, "Oh, okay," and got up to look. I went and visually determined it was still fortunately there, and got another message saying, "Open it." So I did. Right on top was my deceased father's journal, one Mom gave me but I forgot about. I got to read it for the first time. I feel that Dad sent me those messages as a way to contact me and comfort me. Another strange thing that's been happening lately is the puff of air I've been getting on my arm. You would think it's the vent in the ceiling, except it's not coming from that direction. It's blowing in sideways from the side. This has happened many different times. It's always when I'm on the couch. Every time it happens, I tell myself I'm crazy and it doesn't mean anything. I do try to be logical. I get words or phrases that pop in my head. I don't know if they are me or a message. Once I was able to figure out someone's name that way. By the way, speaking of logical, it's like there are two me's, a logical, objective me who knows I am delusional, and a delusional me. My logical self is able to look at my delusional self and say, that's delusional. But I couldn't do that in 2012 when I was so psychotic. My mother's side of the family has had many, many strange and magical experiences. Perhaps I will put those in my next book. That was the chapter Dawnkey Majick. I'd like to say something else about such things, and that is we have a friend who is an atheist. Atheists are cool. Their path is as valid as anybody else's. But what I want to tell you is when my father was laying in his bed and he was soon to be dying, she saw an orb over his head. An orb, and she was an atheist. And I found that fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I'm going to read to you from another chapter now. Donkey Fantasies for Forgiveness. Donkey fantasies are powerful. They make the spirit soar. They make the eyes leak. They make the heart burst with joy. They somehow metaphysically solidify in the psyche. I don't know how, they just do. A fantasy is a powerful thing. It can joyfully fill a boring time. It can make a painful time better. It can make a painful person bearable. It can work miracles. I use them all day, every day. I imagine all kinds of exciting things, earth-moving things. In my fantasies, I am famous and meet celebrities and world figures and move mountains and do all kinds of wonders and miracles. It can even heal a wounded heart. I will attempt to share with you the donkey fantasy of the 6th grade bully. When I was in 6th grade, my mother dressed me in polyester dresses with lace, put a big perm in my hair, afro. I was white, fair, and plump. Imagine the endless amusement this caused for my hip schoolmates in 1976. I met up with a girl I shall call Miss A. She was smaller than me, wiry with big button starry eyes. Those eyes stared straight into my soul, I felt. She had her own idiosyncrasies that would tug at your heart that I will not print here out of respect for her. She was an ununderstood icon that terrified me. I tried at the same time to be friends with her and alternately challenged her. One day she and another girl were punching me by the locker until suddenly I heard a strange sound. So odd. It was me howling like an animal. Her eyes doubled in size, terrified, and she ran. Another girl got an adult. I eventually tired of her, and my pathetic, cowardly self finally said enough. One day, absent-mindedly doodling, I casually told a watchful acquaintance that the next time Miss A walked slowly and deliberately directly in front of me down the hall, I would take the ball of my foot and place it on her posterior and propel her into the air and down the hall. Yes, I am sure those were the careful, slowly drawled words I used. Miss A never came around again. At the end of the year, she summoned me to her gym locker. She showed me a steak knife. I'm gonna get so-and-so. Oh, no, you're not, I thought dryly. She was not at the high school next year. Where did she go? Girls' school? Prison? Is she dead like some of my classmates? I don't know. We moved to southern Indiana a year later. I've never been to one of those school reunions, sadly. But she remained an icon of fear and shame and sadness and humiliation at my cowardice for all these years. But then I had the most beautiful fantasy. I will start with my original fantasy, condensed version. I have a fantasy that I will write a book. It will be like chicken soup for the soul with a magical zing. I will become famous and fly all over the world, touching hungry souls with special messages and kindness. All the world knows me. Miss A is across the country, back in Indiana. She is living in a horrible, rundown hellhole with a man I liken to that old jerky grandpa in The Color Purple, one of the most beautiful movies ever. I imagine him laying around drunk, working up a violence with that grouchy, grackly old voice. Crackle, frackle, ugly old shit. Worthless. She cowers, skinny, malnourished, uncared for, broken, beaten, used, scarred. She has heard of the donkey. Her beaten brain does not remember her shenanigans in 6th grade. So she does not know the donkey is her former victim, attempted friend. She just knows the donkey is a person who loves everyone unconditionally and would help her if she could just see. One night, in a drunken, hateful spiel, her pimp, lover, tormentor, devil has said something that has struck a nerve. She explodes. Screaming, crying, hysterical, she tells him she will leave, and go to the donkey. He laughs so hard he almost pees his pants. She stands huffing, staring. He is violent and laughing at the same time. If he could get up right now, he would cut her, violate her, break her. He is laughing and lurching. That donkey gonna see your ugly old face and slam that door on your ass. She gonna call the police and they gonna roll you off. Then you gonna call me and see if I help your ugly old ass. His taunts go on. He is gasping with laughter. I will, she triumphantly screams, her eyes bugging out. I will go, and she will take me in, and I will tell her about it, and someone will come and kick your ass. He falls into new paroxysms of hilarity. You got no money, you stupid. She slips out eventually with the tiny bit of money she has hidden and hoarded, and boards a bus for California. She barely has enough to pay for the ticket. She does not eat for 3 days except for what she finds in trash cans and other ways. She rides the Greyhound. She gets to Sacramento. The Donkey book said Kathleen lived in Sacramento. Then reality hits. She does not have an address. She sits in the bus station, her head in her hands, knowing she is going to die. She hears a voice. It sounds funnily like Abu on The Simpsons. She would laugh a little if she were not so hungry, tired, dirty, and ready to faint. Quietly and discreetly he asks her, "Are you looking for the donkey?" Chills. She follows him in a daze, her eyes wide. He drives her to the driveway. "It is so much a miracle," he says. "They say she has never moved since she became famous. But the reporters and the pesterers, they drive around and around and become confused and can never find the house." She gets out. She has no luggage. Then her food-starved brain panics and remembers the fare. He is already gone. She stumbles to the door and rings the doorbell. The donkey's mother answers. Her eyes widen. Her mom screams hoarsely for Kathleen. Kathleen comes running and stops dead in her tracks. Miss A whispers, "I can has cheeseburger," and faints in her arms. The donkey is strong. She has carried stacks of rotors and heads in crates. She whispers, "You can has filet mignon," and picks up and carries the filthy, broken, scarred little body of her friend to her bed, and they bring her sustenance and make her a bubbly bath water and fill it with the milk of human kindness. How can you not forgive a friend who so needs a cheeseburger? Now, I would like to explain what that means about I can has cheeseburger. This book was written because of the site I Can Has Cheeseburger. It's where everything started for me. My shirt is confusing me. Oh well. Anyway, it started at I Can Has Cheeseburger, the site. The lolcat site, you know, the one with the picture of the Russian blue or whatever he is saying, "I can has cheeseburger?" That's where the magic started. We called it Cheeseland. We turned it into a paradise and a playground. We spoke what we called lol speak, and people would come and say rude things about it, like the R word, and we would be kind to them, and sometimes they would stay and become friends. There were people who were hurting and hurt that would show up, and we would be kind to them and playful. It was a wonderful, magical place. Everybody made so many friends, and we would go on what we called cheese meets to go see other cheese friends. And it just became kind of famous. And we all just loved each other so much. And it went on for years. And then we moved on to Facebook. And I made more friends there. And I became known as the donkey. I was originally considered the donkey in Cheeseland because that was my avatar. The Shrek donkey was my avatar. And I became a DAWNKEY as I grew and matured spiritually. It was a wonderful place. And now I'm at LinkedIn. I'm trying to start a love revolution. Yes, I know that sounds crazy. but I take my medicine regularly. I am not delusional right now. When I'm delusional, I don't say I'm not delusional right now because I don't think in those kind of terms, if that makes sense. So maybe I'm just an eccentric donkey. But yes, let me see if I can read something else to you from the book. This one's pretty long, and it's about drinking. This is part of the book. It's a long chapter. I don't think I can read that one to you because I think the time will be up before that. Let me see what I can find for you. What's this? Bits and Pieces. This chapter is called Bits and Pieces. By the way, if you're coming in new at this time, I'm Kathleen Byram, and I'm the author of Conversations with Dawnkey, A Bipolar Journey. That's my first book. This is from my second book, which has not been published yet. And this chapter is called Bits and Pieces. I was reminded earlier of dear Mrs. D in elementary school. Her music room was magic. I remember many nooks and crannies in that room and all manner of fascinating stuff. The room may have been a stage, come to think of it. There was dancing in music class. Twerphead McGee had to be my square dancing partner. Maybe I liked this, maybe I didn't. Speaking of TM, one Christmas I decided to buy him a little toy car. I did this with love covered up with sarcasm. I acted as though giving him the toy would embarrass him, but deep down I just wanted to be loved. 1976. They set up a little room in the school with things for sale in it. I remember them with excitement and buying a Liberty Bell and a little white head on a pretty glazed blue base for my mother for Christmas. This was exciting, giving gifts at even an early age. Things can be so new and magical when you're a child. I remember painting the walls at Riley Hospital in Indianapolis. It was in the child guidance area. Mom worked as a test giver and a secretary. She was wonderful. Let me digress. Mom is so amazing. Everybody loved her. There was one lady there who was jealous of her, though. When it was review time with several people there, the lady tore Mom a new butt. Mom listened to this well and fairly. They wanted to know her rebuttal. She basically said she had none, that she respected Jay, and if that was what she perceived, then that's how it was for her. Oh my God. That woman made a complete 180. She started treating Mom like gold. See how Mom does? Back to the painting. Mom and I, when I was around 11, painted a fairy scene on the walls for the children that came. I was so proud. I felt so big and important. I wish we had taken and kept pictures of it. She also helped me paint my bathroom when I was probably about the same age. It was a beach scene, and I decorated the bathroom, and it was glorious. Sneaking magazines. Mom had Cosmos stacked in her craft room closet, and Dad had Playboys stacked in his room. I swear he read them just for the fiction. But I didn't. I read them for knowledge. Knowledge of the forbidden, the hidden, the occult, if you will. Oh, I loved the occult. If I could have known to call it spirituality back then, I would have fared better with Dad's mom about it. According to her belief, which was Southern Fundamentalist Baptist, that was a sin. Sin, sin, sin. What a bunch of crap for a proper little girl like me. What a load to put on me. And when I was going through puberty and felt guilt and shame at having normal feelings. Back to occult. I learned what astrology was when I was in around 3rd grade. It fascinated me. It was like occult psychology. I clung to it for decades, using it to try to understand people. I always wanted to understand people, you know. You know who has uncomfortable seats for a big woman like me? Cracker Barrel. CB, get on the stick. Big folks like to be comfy too when eating. That just came to mind. And now comes Jeff Goldblum. Watched a good show with him and Cyndi Lauper and an all-star cast, it seemed like. It was called Vibes, and it was really entertaining. I recommend. I also recommend Her with Joaquin Phoenix. Amazing show. That's Her, the pronoun her. Once in San Francisco while on Geary, I happened upon a seemingly homeless man in a messed up electric wheelchair, and what he asked me to do. He wanted to know if I would be so kind as to push him up the hill of the wheelchair. Well, you know I did. I almost busted a gut, too. Just about killed me. But it needed done, and when a job needs done, you do it, not look for someone else to do it. When I got him to his point of departure from me, he fished out a cheap bottle of brandy. I adore brandy, and I am no snob. God forgive me, I accepted that gift. Now, was that wrong? That's an interesting question to ask. Was it wrong? This was a homeless man, and he was giving me something that was probably very valuable to him. I don't know if he had money. Sometimes homeless people have money for different reasons, and one of them may be that they get a check from for veterans or something like that, but that they're still homeless. And so he may have had the money to buy some booze, but I asked him, I said, "Do you have any more?" And he said, yes, he had his own bottle. And I took the bottle as a gift from him. And I think I partially did it because it allowed him to retain his dignity. See, we were right across the street from the liquor store that I used to go to buy my booze. And I had money. I worked. I had a good job. There was no reason why I couldn't walk right across the street and buy my own bottle of brandy. But he was giving it as a gift because he wanted to. And I accepted it. And I feel still a little twinge of guilt about that and I'm not quite sure why. Here is the chapter, Men and Sexuality. How early? Well, my first recognition of boys was around kindergarten, I believe. I remember running in a circle from a little boy in someone else's home. The pursuit was exhilarating. My first hand-holding and kiss didn't happen until I was 17. Now, I have titled this Men and Sexuality, but that doesn't mean my sexuality is only about men. Let me explain. I find women more beautiful and pleasing to look at than men. I have never been with a woman romantically. If I didn't have a partner and a woman approached me and asked me for a date, I would tell her I was bi-curious and if that was okay. And if she respected that, then I would agree if I found her pleasant. This has never happened. It happened in a group. I could feel her staring at me. When I glanced, she had her eyes big and intense looking. I got the impression she liked my eyes and was trying to capture that same intensity in hers. Did that make sense? Because that's the sort of thing I would do. She was with her mother. Mine was coming to pick me up. We stood next to each other when the group gathered and held hands and said our things we say. And then it seems like maybe I gave her my number. I don't remember. I just remember us looking at each other, having to separate, and wondering if I would see her again. I didn't. In a different world, a world where everyone accepts bisexuality, I might have been braver. So you see, I am not averse to dating a woman. I know some transsexuals I would date if I were single and were asked. For example, I found Chaz Bono to be quite nice looking, as both sexes. I want to start my chapter off by saying these things because I want you to know that I am accepting and including of all sexualities and love all beings. I am only attracted to humans, as far as I know at this point. If I were to meet someone alien to this planet, I might change my mind. I'm having a little trouble here starting. I'm not sure exactly where to start. At the beginning, I hear you say? I remember as young as less than 2, perhaps, sitting in the kitchen sink and pouring water all over myself. This is the first sensual experience I remember. Sensual is not sexual necessarily. I'm not talking about sexuality here. I always felt sensual about water. I have had a love affair with water all my life. I just had another memory. My cousin Lynette and her family took me to the beach. This was in Indiana, so it was a lake or something, I imagine. There was a huge water slide. This is where I met S. I was probably 14 to 15. The summer of 80, perhaps. I had never been with a guy before. I had never held hands or kissed or done anything. This guy had to have been 20 or something. He told me his name was S. I frowned and repeated it, concentrating heavily on his name, as my shyness, reservedness kept me from being normal and friendly. We went on the slide together, him sitting behind me. This was all very thrilling until at some point I slid and hit my head. I got a horrible migraine from it. On our way home, I noticed weird glitching in the stoplights. It was probably my first year of migraines, but I understood how they worked quite well already. I said, "Uh-oh." That was my warning. Later, we stopped at someone's house, and Lynette went in, and I sat and sat and sat in abject pain and suddenly lost it. I just kind of lost it. And her daughter freaked and ran inside and got Lynette, and we got me home. I'm reminded of another situation when I was a teen, probably in 8th grade. Nancy had a graduation party or something. It was at the clubhouse. She was from a different school than I. She attended a private school. I wished I could go to that school with her. There were only a few kids in her class, and I would have blossomed in a more intimate setting like that probably. But it was not to be. She had boys. She had boys over. This was terribly exciting. They were affectionate too, as in charmingly, politely so. Not grabby and goofy. There was playing in the pool, and it was divine. I had never been at a girl-boy party before, and it was heavenly. I went home with this dreamy look on my face that my mother noticed with concern. Nothing happened, though. It was a small clubhouse, not a room with bedrooms. There was another time something could have occurred and didn't. I was with my friend C in Orleans. We went to a party. It was very casual. There was a man there telling me I looked in my 20s. I believe I was more like 16. He was talking to me and brought me a beer, if I remember correctly. He was attractive. C's mother got wind of what was happening and put a stop to it. This made me feel watched over and cared about, even while I regretted the thwarting. I think I was attracted to older guys from early on, and it just became ridiculous. When I was 21, I was dating a 53-year-old man. Granted, when we met through a personal ad back in 87 or so, he told me he was 43. I believed him. He had a heavily lined face. He looked 83. I brought him home to meet my parents. He met them and saw how they were supposed to be 46 and he 43, and it was quite obvious he was older than they. My parents never said a word about it, but he joined me in the bedroom and informed me of his lie. I was stunned. I was so stunned all I could do was stare at him. I didn't believe him, so I asked him to show me his ID. Sure enough, born in 1934. I never said anything bad to him about it. I simply accepted this as the truth and went on. Later in Michigan, on vacation at his vacation home, one of his friends asked me how old I was. 14, I answered dryly. So you're not going to tell us? Asked the annoyingly rude lady, and against my own desires, I told her 21. I resented being asked that question. C was a fine boyfriend, except that he was a little naggy, only because I was irresponsible. And I didn't know a good thing when I had it. I jonesed for troublesome guys. So I managed to get me one. But first, before I tell you about that, I'm going to tell you about my heartbreaks. I was a very emotional child. I mixed together emotions, food, booze, cigarettes, sex, and guys. What I yearned for, to be Cher in Moonstruck. What I got, disappointment over and over. I wanted to meet someone by serendipity, and we would be suddenly crazy for each other. We would look at each other and know they were one. I would be loved fully and completely. I was needy as hell and very, very troubled emotionally. When I was in kindergarten, there was a boy I liked. I didn't see him after third grade. When I was somewhere between probably 12 and 14, I looked up his last name in the phone book and found him, called him, sounded like a fool, and embarrassed myself badly. Years later, I would meet and go out with a teacher, not mine, much older than I, who I was head over heels crazy about. He informed me that I scared him and wouldn't see me. I grieved horribly over that, far, far more than what is normal. I was probably around 21 then. I chose unavailable people and pined for them, just like my father was emotionally unavailable. I got the attention I needed from my mom, though. She was incredibly encouraging. That's probably enough from this book. I've read quite a bit. And now we have about 15 more minutes, and I'm trying to decide whether I want to stay here and talk some more or if I should go. I see that there is nobody in the chat, and apparently there's been a person every few minutes or so, somebody would come in, but there's nobody here. And I'm just wondering if I should talk about something and make it an hour. We're going to have a show tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. It's a show with me, Bradley, and Jay, and we talk about questions. We ask each other questions and answer them, and they're pretty good questions, too. I have some that I'm going to be asking. Have you ever had sleep paralysis? Have you? Well, that's a whole story in itself about sleep paralysis, and I'm not going to tell it on here because it's a little disturbing. I want to say that sleep paralysis is often associated with demons doing something bad to you. And I had that. I would have sleep paralysis sometimes, and I would think that something was getting me. And I dealt with that very strangely. And it stopped. Another question. A daily ritual that keeps you grounded. Well, I think there are several. I think the computer is the main one. And the ritual would be posting on LinkedIn. And what was the other ritual? A daily ritual that keeps you grounded. Oh, duh, making YouTube videos. Those are the things that are really have me excited right now. I have made a lot of friends at LinkedIn, and there are some that are just absolutely fantastic friends. and I'm growing close to some of them, and it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I just lost my train of thought. What is a normal societal expectation that you have decided to opt out of? Well, society, this could get ugly. Society expects and judges on a lot of things. I don't agree with a lot of things that society does. For one thing, there's rich people. Now, I'm not talking about, maybe your friend who worked their butt off and became rich, and they're a nice person and everything. I'm talking about people that have $1 trillion. There are people that seem to worship that kind of living. And oftentimes, it seems that they are poor. And they, I feel, are victims of these grossly rich people. I am so thirsty. I am just about to croak. And it's my medicine that does it. And my mouth is all dry, and we only have 8 minutes left, so I'm going to head out early. And I hope that you enjoyed this and that you come to our show at LinkedIn. And if you don't have a LinkedIn account, I suggest that you get one and that you add Kathleen Byram. I'm the Kathleen Byram that has a red heart right after her name. That's how you'll know me. And you'll also recognize my picture from the video. Thank you so much for listening and coming. Even if you're listening to this later, thank you for listening. Now I have to figure out how to get off of here. Where is it? Oh, it's end stream. Thank you, friend, for watching. Bye-bye.